I am still extremely surprised about Magda's oft-repeated words. If I was not in the truth, I am sure I'd make a good whore. What a horrific thought! In fact, anybody thinking that way is already such a person in their hearts. But she was in the truth. This was also the morality principle the witnesses were allegedly promoting. One wonders why she ever considered something like that. It seems that what kept her morally clean was only her adherence to their faith. It is still very hard to swallow. This memory kept repeating for a while and shocked me every time it was remembered. I fondly recall the wise words of Louis Wise. A good friend is a connection to life, a tie to the past, a road to the future, the key to sanity in a totally insane world. One of the witnesses we were befriended with in Hobart had a very loving family. His wife always seemed to remain home, only going out occasionally when there was a special occasion or a house-to-house preaching activity which all Jehovah's Witnesses were encouraged to do, spending as many hours as they could. They were calculating the time spent on preaching the kingdom of God and reporting them to their elders in their congregations, which was then added to a worldwide total of hours spent as a whole organization and published in their yearbooks. They had a daughter at high school, and on occasions she used to come with us to the beach, or local swimming pool, which Magda preferred to go to. She always wanted to sit on my shoulders at the beach, while I walked into the sea. Although I did not worry about it, thinking of it as a sign of trustworthy friendship, I was puzzled when she said she loved being carried into the water. Apparently, nobody in her family would do it. Her parents were happy, as they would not trust anybody other than brothers and sisters in the truth. Surprisingly, this did not worry Magda, contrary to her true nature, for she would normally show signs of extreme jealousy. Even more surprisingly, she told me it was all right with our young sister, but I detected strange emotional feelings from this young teenager, and it saddened me. She was probably growing up under strict restrictions and religious intolerance, which my wife considered as discipline, the same as her brothers and sisters in faith. I was certainly not going to feed the emotions of this young and innocent heart, preferring to remain as just a family friend. Yet if Magda knew that I was just a good person without being a true and baptized Jehovah's Witness, she would be extremely jealous, with the assistance of her so-called brothers and sisters, nagging me without a break about that young child's closeness. I was never interested in any closeness of this nature. One day, when returning from work, I met her going home after school. She came closer, putting her arms around me, and I was unsure how to react. I told her to study well, and that she was going to have a beautiful future, after giving her a peck on the cheek. I did not say nothing about that incident to Magda, in case it created an unnecessary argument or disagreements, as usual. But William, her father, used to look at me in a very unusual way, almost indicating that his daughter had a crush on me. A little while later it was confirmed, and I felt extremely sad about the whole situation. Who knows what the young girl was telling her parents? That teenager showed more tenderness towards me than my wife ever did, but I was not going to encourage any furtherance of those emotions expressed in her innocence. I hope she had a lovely life, a boyfriend, probably loving husband, and family as the years rolled by. But once again I felt sad, thinking that the poor girl may have been subjected to harsh restrictions, and ungrounded accusations in the name of discipline, which my wife was very keen to promote. We often frequented a local swimming pool, and whilst playing with little Annette in the water, Magda fixed her eyes on my rear end for some reason, sometimes loudly shouting for all to hear to embarrass me in. "You are showing your split." What was she hoping to achieve by humiliating me? I wondered. I used to respond, "Maybe they have not seen a European arse, since you have pointed at it." I still laugh at that stupid situation I had to put up with, and wonder who was the one really humiliated. Vincent van Gogh says, "As we advance in life, it becomes more and more difficult, but in fighting the difficulties, the inmost strength of the heart is developed." From time to time, I test flew a variety of small aircraft, Cherokees and Cessnas around Hobart. That was one of the hobbies I developed over the years. However, Magda never wanted to share any of my activities, as for her serving God was more important. One day after breakfast, I made mention of where I liked to go, and even fly. I thought that we could share the experience, and afterwards have a nice dinner in a restaurant somewhere, but she was unbelievably upset. She told me, in her extremely heavy accent, "You must know that I don't want to do something like that. What is the purpose of it anyway? Do you forget we must go for the service to listen to our brothers? You know the district assembly is on today." After such advice given to me on several different occasions, I knew I had to pursue my hobbies and interests on my own. For instance, once in a while I would love to meet with like-minded people and go stargazing. However, I could not convince her to come and enjoy looking at the stars and moon through telescopes. She preferred to go visiting her brothers and sisters for Bible reading and serving Jehovah by preaching the word of God house to house. It was clear that being completely hypnotized to live a life in social isolation was her only choice. She was promised by the religious system she adhered to that she was going to have everything one could imagine in life after Armageddon, and therefore she did not need to enjoy anything available within a world of humanity. She was convinced that the world with everything it offered was evil, and she needed not be a part of it just to please the God of witnesses, and that this was the only way she would have everlasting life. In other words, through their devotion and services, they were all paying for an everlasting life on earth, as their God apparently promised in the Bible. It sounded very similar to the idea of selling real estate on the moon for hefty fees. I could do nothing out of my love and concern other than accept her as she was. However, when she nagged me under the influence of, and with the advice given by the witnesses, my worries increased, thus making me feel more convinced than ever that this marriage was doomed. All my activities, and even my academic research, had to be conducted discreetly, so as not to hurt her and lead to more argumentative situations. All my undertakings were interpreted as a lack of interest in God's kingdom, and the alarm bells kept tolling. I did not and cannot believe in myths as truth, yet I consider certain traditions the majority of humanity adhere to as being very pleasant, such as Christmas and Easter celebrated around the world, Jewish Yom Kippur, or the Muslims' Ramadan are similarly lovely times observed. They became worldwide social events, when the entire humanity appears to be at peace with one another. During those times, almost all age groups enjoy well wishes towards each other. Frankly, seeing the happy faces of young ones is the most joyful experience. We cannot simply dismiss it all as evil practice. We cannot simply close our eyes while walking through a rose garden. Let us take a deep breath and enjoy the air. Let us be thankful that we are here and now. Some people worry about tomorrows in terms of their life's continuity and comfort, assuming that today everything is bad and getting worse. Is it not better to surround oneself with the joy of living now? This way, all our happy yesterdays and happy tomorrows will become one happy now. Sometimes it seems necessary for people to unlearn what was learned, loosen what was held tight, and unwind a little. Otherwise, there is no joy left in living, for they might be existing in total darkness without realizing it. A little tolerance goes a long way. What surprised me most was that I was constantly hammered to respect all, particularly the witness elders and my wife. But those hammer throwers, including my wife, never attempted to respect me. Magda was incapable of seeing how much I respected her, and that I kept living in fear. Her children were not any different, as was her own mother towards her father. I can never remember her telling me that she genuinely loved me. Obviously, she never learned what love was, for she never gave herself permission to know and discover it. She was thoroughly blinded with the hope of a new world order. William Makepeace Thackeray says, "The world is a looking-glass, and gives back to every man the reflection of his own face. Frown at it, and it will, in turn, look sourly upon you. Laugh at it, and with it, and it is a jolly, kind companion." One of my favorite celebrations were birthdays, which I was never permitted to join in or enjoy since I had started my fabulous journey when I left my parental home. Alas, it was the same during my marriage with Magda. He was just another faithful member and servant of the witnesses. As long as I was associated with them, my every move had to be under Jehovah's Witness control, during which I was hammered forever about the pagan practice of birthdays. However, deep inside me, I always felt like honoring all the wonderful mothers giving birth to their young, and therefore the celebration of birthdays has always remained very special to me. I have therefore celebrated all those new births and all other birthdays silently and discreetly, deep within. During my own birthdays, I often endeavored to create opportunities and excuses to go out and celebrate them with a piece of cake and cups of coffee, while thinking of my mother giving me a chance to become alive in this magnificent world. With the witnesses, it was never the case, as it still is today. Noticing their own children observing school friends who were not in the truth, enjoying fun times, celebrating their birthdays, and even being invited to share the fun, but never being allowed to do so, Jehovah's Witness parents occasionally organized a get-together with their other school friends for non-birthday parties, just to show others that they too had fun. However, those get-togethers, although pleasant, had no real meaning other than just like another day with a few more sweets and select school friends. Jehovah's Witness children have been taught to hate the world, because the world is an evil place wherein pagan practices are ripe. Children are encouraged to think that it is God's will for them not to share those evil celebrations. All those wicked engagements worldly people are involved in are not approved of God. What about Jesus, who was God's only begotten Son, whom he sent to the world to wipe off their sins? Was he not born of a virgin? Should one also consider that birthday wicked? Besides, since Jesus came and wiped off sins, how come children born today are still born in sin? I found it was better to leave the wise witness wisdom to the witnesses. David R. J. Powell says, "You can choose to live your life to your agenda with a sense of personal purpose that gives your life ventures meaning and a feeling of fulfillment. This is called being at cause, living from the inside out, creating the life and reality you want." It really is up to every individual to live whichever way they wish to live their lives, and nobody has the right to dictate individuals' realities. However, Antoine de Saint-Exupéry says, "It is only with the heart that one can see clearly, for the most essential things are invisible to the eye." Unfortunately, some believe they can see into the little jewels hidden from sight, thus judging others who do not follow their dictates, and others fall into their trap, where they are led to believe the good God has granted them wisdom to follow those who love to control them with all their might. Magda used to have an interesting wisdom. She lectured at every opportunity. The devil can place some untruths as real in front of people's eyes, just to lead them astray. By any chance, could this also be the case with the witnesses? They popularly preach not to judge others. However, does that also apply to them? Pointing a finger at others is easy, but one should not forget the other fingers are also pointing at one's self. Although at every opportunity I was lectured about what an awful thing it was to be interested in the electronics, I have either filmed or recorded the sounds of life around me. I am also so glad for having done so, because after all these years, I can still listen to the memorable sound recordings I made. I can, for example, listen to my pets as they were when alive. I can hear my cats, goats, and horses, and recall times of joy and cries as they were. I can listen to the voices of my childhood friends. I can hear my children's first cries when they were born, and their first attempts to read. Through these recordings, I can still hear the laughter and singing of my mother and other relations. I can hear my friends sing and play musical instruments, as well as my own piano playing. I am so happy to have valued my electronic interests, no matter how evil they may have been considered. When still in Hobart, I attempted to record Christmas celebrations whilst pretending to test my recorder, just as it was when living in Germany. I recorded the sounds coming from the street outside, as well as the local radio broadcasting from Elizabeth Street, and the beautiful Christmas music streaming. This was my only celebration of Christmases, with some joyful nagging from my sweet darling Magda. She was never happy with any of my interests. I suppose to please her immensely and fulfill the witness criteria, I needed to have no hobbies no interests, and certainly no electronics. In fact, she made a comparison between my interest in recording and being unfaithful to one's wife, which I found to be a little too extreme. However, I was never going to stop recording, meeting like-minded people, friends from outside the Jehovah's Witness faith, to do stargazing from time to time, reading science fiction books, and spending some time in the library. Life could not be just work, sleep, and serving God only to please my partner. Because everything I wanted to do, study, read, or undertake was equated to possible devil worship, I was forever advised not to engage in it, but rather consider my priorities while pleasing God by becoming a faithful pioneer preaching the good news to people for long hours. My other priority being an endlessly preached advice on a daily basis was to work hard, feed the family, and pay the rent, without neglecting Jehovah's interests. My interest in reading books supposedly promoting devil worship, like the ones about psychology, astronomy, philosophy, and UFOs, needed to be avoided, and replaced with the only interest of having a family Bible reading session at every opportunity on a daily basis. Our child had to be taught Jehovah's ways from an extremely young age, so that she would never swing away from the righteous path. It was so strange for me being literally forced to accept and follow every dictate and command issued forth by Magda. Unfortunately, the whole situation became unbearable. I was now literally waiting for that moment of moments when the actual separation took place. In fact, we were living a life of already being separated. However, with great hope in my heart, I decided to try a few different tactics, remembering Lord Byron's famous words, "Be thou the rainbow in the storms of life, the evening beam that smiles the clouds away and tints tomorrow with prophetic ray."